All right, it is an exciting day as I get to announce a new machine that I have in my shop and that just hit the market today, and that is the Wazer Pro. Now, if you're familiar with my videos, you know that a few years back I talked about and unboxed the Wazer Desktop, which at the time was the first desktop Waterjet machine that you could use in your shop. Now, I stayed in touch with the people over at Wazer, and I have helped them beta test that machine and their new machine, and it's finally released, and I am so excited to not only have it in my shop, but share with you the ways that I think it might be useful in your shop, because as a relatively small shop and bespoke fabricator like myself, having a professional grade Waterjet in my shop that takes up only 2 feet by 3 feet is completely self-contained and works really, really well is game changing. So let's go back in time. I'll show you how it got delivered in the crate, how I got it set up, and how easy it was to get it running and how it works. So the Wazer Pro comes fully assembled in a large crate. It came freight, came on a liftgate truck. It was pretty easy to get it off the truck and get the crate apart, and all the accessories are in there too. So there's a couple of cup beds, some tools, water lines, and 2 buckets of garnet came with this machine. Now it's nicely covered and bolted down. And what's really cool is they designed the crate in a way where you can actually use one of the walls of the crate as a ramp to get it down off of the crate and off of the pallet itself, which I thought was really clever. It's got a couple of bolts holding it down to the ground, pretty easy to get it disassembled, and everything's taped up kind of like the way a printer would be. And I'll show you how I'm going to move it into the shop now if you don't have access to a pallet jack. All right, so the new Wazer is designed so that you can run a pallet jack underneath it. There's actually some steel underneath the bottom that you can see here and here so that you can put a pallet jack right in it. The problem is my yard isn't really conducive to a pallet jack to get inside because of all the bumps. But what you can do is you can use a piece of plywood that straddles these 2 cross members and then a good heavy hand truck to get underneath that rear steel piece. And then using a strap, you'll actually get enough leverage to bring it in. Now, obviously, you have to do this empty because this thing is incredibly heavy if it's full, but I think it's only about 350 pounds empty. So with a good hand truck, this one I'll put a link to. This is like a massive one. I'll be able to roll this thing right in the door. So once it was on that large hand truck, me and my friend James rolled it right into the door. It was a little tight, but we made it, just kind of wiggled it around some stuff. It's not that heavy on the hand truck. It's like maybe 350 pounds. And it actually came with this little dolly that fits perfectly on those steel struts. And if you tip it to the side, you can get it on there to position it a little closer to where it's going to live. Now, be aware this thing doesn't have any water in it, but when it does, it's going to be really, really heavy. I think it holds 60 gallons of water or 40 gallons of water. I'm really not sure. But figure every single gallon of water weighs about 8 pounds. So do the math and you'll know this thing is not going to be easy to move once it's full. There's this sort of quick connect fitting for the water line and drain line. You basically just push to connect. It's very, very simple. And then from there, you can see the 220 volt twist lock plug on the end. I'll hook up the water line, stick the waistline out the window, plug it in, take some stickers off, and it's essentially ready to go. All right, so I want to show you one of the things that makes the Wazer Pro different, and that's the depth of the actual water tank. So I have my cutting table in now, and you can see that down in there all the way is a kind of angled water tank with an aluminum bottom. Now, it's a little hard to tell in the video, but it goes down to about here. So it's quite deep in comparison to the old Wazer, which only went up to here, the kind of standard model. And the reason is because the nozzle and the pump on this one is so much more powerful that they needed to extend the depth of the tank to avoid the actual cutting nozzle cutting straight through the bottom of the tank. That also allows for really, really good abrasive collection, because all that abrasive, instead of sitting at the bottom of a flat tank, is being directed into those catchers right there, which then it comes back up through these tubes on the sides here, and that's what allows your used abrasive to go into these buckets, and then you take these buckets out after you make a cut. And I'll show you that after I make my first test cut, where that used abrasive will go. So you do have to fill the machine with water once you get it in place, and like I said, I think it takes 40 gallons of water, and it does take a little while to fill up because the new reservoir is so deep. So I just let the garden hose run and got it filled up. And then I'm using the recommended garnet, which is this Barton garnet, and filling the hopper on the side. There are some little mesh screens that you basically just fill it through, and it takes about 20 pounds of garnet in that drawer. Now you're obviously going to be filling this as it runs out, and you have to do what's called a nozzle purge, just to make sure that there is no air in the nozzle, and it'll establish a water level based referencing the cup bed, and it all does that automatically. There's pretty simple instructions on how to get this going, and it's basically just running water through the system without any garnet to make sure that there's no air in the system and the water level is exactly where it needs to be. It really only takes a couple of minutes, probably less than 30 minutes to get this machine set up. Once the water level's set up, you're basically ready to cut. So if you're familiar with water jets at all and you've looked into them, you know, one, they're incredibly expensive, like in the hundreds of thousands of dollars, and two, they are gigantic. Now this machine is smaller than like a refrigerator. It's 3 feet wide by about 2 feet deep, and everything is self-contained within the machine. It's 220 volt, and it only requires a water in and then a drain wastewater out. My water in comes from a hose bib, runs through this white line, and my water out just goes through the window, and all of the garnet, most of the garnet stays in the base of the machine, so it's essentially just like gray water going out into the dirt out the window. So the garnet hopper is here on the side. I think it holds about 20 pounds of material. It's slightly larger than the one on the desktop machine. And one of the big things that changed about this machine is the depth of the water tank due to how much stronger the pump is. So the desktop version, the water tank essentially ends at the bottom of the machine. But in this version, the water tank goes down probably an additional foot. And it's tapered kind of like a cone at the end, which if you have any familiarity with water jets, cleaning them out can be a real pain. But the way that they've designed this, all that used abrasive goes down to the bottom of that sort of funnel and then can come up through the venturis into the used abrasive collection tanks on the top. So with the machine set up, I'm gonna run through some cuts with it. I'm gonna cut a couple different pieces of materials, some aluminum, and we'll cut a piece of titanium as well, just to show you kind of what the machine is capable of. And we'll talk a little bit how I think this might be useful in a shop and how you can get one. So I wanted to put this thing right to the test on something difficult. And a difficult cut on a machine like this is something that I couldn't make by hand in an efficient amount of time. So here's a part that I actually made previously on my Wazer desktop. Now this part took about an hour and 20 minutes to cut on the Wazer desktop out of 1/8 inch aluminum plate. This is a pretty complicated part with many different features, a couple of slots, and some precisely located holes with an interior shape and an exterior shape that are not regular in any way. Now this is the kind of part you could cut on a CNC with like a cutting bit, but a CNC is a lot more risk where you have to worry about chip breakage and size tolerances. With the water jet, you basically just set it and forget it. All right, so when the cut's complete, it'll drain down the cut bed because it was cutting submerged. So my drain line heads out the window, and I will remove my shade apparatus and show you the part that we cut. That cut in about 27 minutes, which is about 1/3 of the time it took me to cut this on my other Wazer, which took about an hour and 20 minutes to make this same part. So let's take it out, clean it up, and I'll show you a little closer look at it. I used the little sprayer to clean off the garnet, and then I can pull out the part. Came out really nice. All right, so what I've got in the machine now, fastened by these two sort of thumb screws into fixed posts inside the machine, is basically like a guide plate template. Now, when I got the machine, this came in it. I wanted to make another cut, so I took it out. But what's cool about this is you can really configure this at any point while having the machine. And basically what this is going to allow me to do is cut a reference corner that is fixed and known to the gantry. Now, if you are familiar with CNCs at all, if your CNC has like rigid limit switches, you can set a fixed 0. But in a water jet scenario, because the bed is sacrificial, it's very hard to do that. But the way that the Wazer guys designed this, we can cut in this template, which comes loaded on the card that comes with the machine. And you'll see in a second, once it's done, it's going to be about an 8-minute cut, how I'll now have a fixed reference corner that I can then do batch cutting, running off that same XY0 and make repeated cuts. So let's cut that part out right now out of this aluminum that was loaded into the machine. All right, so with that now cut, there's also a little square in there. Basically what I have now is a referenceable 0 here in the corner. So with this now XY0 that is fixed to the machine itself in a repeatable position, I can use the cam software, the WAM, which is the Wazer proprietary cam software, to use that 0 and index this part. And the reason there are these little kind of dog ears there is because the way you fasten down to the bed is with screws, so you can really easily now get through all those locations to clamp down your material even on these two sides. So I don't need to use this. What's nice is this is like very easily removable if it's in the way. So it's just, there's some threaded posts that you can just unscrew, these little plastic thumb screws. And these things float if you drop them in the water. And you can just pop this out. And then I've got my whole bed back again. And if I need to do an indexing job, I can drop this in. One of the things I like most about the new machine is this little built-in sprayer, so you can clean off your parts. And instead of putting all that garnet into your sink, it all stays inside the machine so that it can get recycled into the garnet catchers in the front. All right, to really put this thing to the test for its ability to move fast and efficiently, I've got some 1/2-inch aluminum in here. This is just 1/2-inch thick, 60-61, and I'm gonna cut a simple geometric shape, a little corner square, and also a little 1.25-inch circle, so we can kind of check for accuracy. Now to hold this down, like I said, you just use a couple of screws. It's pretty easy, and then we can position the part, move it around wherever we want to cut out of this piece, and we'll see how it does. It should be pretty quick. So here's a perfect example. I positioned my material in the wrong spot, and let's just say I wanted to move the origin. You can actually set your XY0 before you start cutting. So wherever I placed it on the cam software on the Wazer website, I can just move it. So I want to start here in the corner. We'll click OK. Now when you're cutting 1/2-inch aluminum like this, there obviously is going to be some time involved with the piercing. That's basically what takes the longest time when you're cutting thick material, because once that garnet pierces, the cut rate is pretty consistent. So it took about 1.5 minutes to pierce this 1/2-inch aluminum, but once it did, it cut it beautifully and had no issues getting through both of the shapes. Once they were done, I cleaned them up on the belt grinder just a tiny bit, and then I can check them for tolerance, and they came out great. And I try to do as little cleanup on these as possible because I didn't want to affect that. But I've got pretty much dead square on the inside and the outside of this little mini square that I made. And then measuring this. And now measuring this, I just actually went and checked my file because I thought this was a 125 circle, but it's really 125 by 121. And I've got 12465 by 1209. So I'm pretty close. I think part of the reason that I'm a little bit undersized is just because of how thick this is and how long it took for that garnet to pierce. But pretty close enough for me considering this 1/2-inch aluminum. And that cut was pretty fast to do these two parts. Took about 15 minutes. Needed very little and minimal cleanup. So you can cut 1/2-inch aluminum really efficiently and quickly with this machine. The last thing I want to do is give this machine a little bit of a challenge with some titanium. This is 6AL4V grade 5 titanium, and I'm going to be cutting a little keychain that I've designed and I've been wanting to bring to market for a little while. Now, cutting this manually, if you've ever tried to cut titanium, would be an absolute nightmare. I could do it with carbide end mills, but that also has its own set of issues, as work holding something this small can be kind of difficult, and it does have these little features that I want to make sure are preserved. It cuts it beautifully in about 15 minutes, and it's basically ready to go. A little bit of cleanup on the belt grinder, and essentially I'm all done. All right, so that's the Wazer Pro. Just a couple of quick examples just to show you what the machine's capable of. It's capable of a lot more than that, and there's a lot more features and kind of other stuff that I didn't go into, but that'll be for another video. I just wanted to share that this machine has been released. I'm super excited about it. Having a Waterjet in your small shop is a game changer. It's really something that is non-existent outside of the stuff that Wazer's been doing. And I've had one of these machines since the first one, right? I bought my first original Wazer from the Kickstarter, if you remember, years ago when I made that first video. And I've stayed in touch with them, watched them progress and refine these machines into something that I think is really, really great. I beta tested this one, and I'm super happy with the production version, which I was just showing today. What's exciting for me is that you can actually purchase this through my website. So there'll be drop shipping from Wazer, but if you have questions or you want to interact with me directly and ask me as a kind of a third party how I use the machine and how it may work or not work for your shop, either this one or the desktop version, you can now do that, and you can purchase it through the link down below in the description of this video directly through my website. It helps me out, and it also gives you guys a way to talk to me directly about a machine like this, and we can kind of have a little consultation about the machine. And also I can help you, get any other questions answered by the Wazer people if I can't answer them directly. So if you're interested in that and you are interested in purchasing one, see the link down below. These are available to purchase today. They'll ship in a couple of weeks, but I'm super excited about it, and I've even talked to them about kind of some other little tweaks and creature comforts that'll be coming in the shipped versions. If you have any questions about the machine specifically, you can leave them down in the comments below. And if you want to see me cut anything specifically, leave those comments down below as well. And maybe I'll post on my Instagram, which you can see right here at Make Everything Shop, some specific clips of me cutting specific materials. This thing is amazing for titanium, stainless, carbon fiber, glass, plastic. It's really good at cutting plastic. And it's just an all around awesome machine. The new speed and power that it has is incredible, and it's going to make small projects like things like this little clip that I made just so easy, to the point where I could actually just use this for a production run instead of outsourcing it. I hope you enjoy this video, and I hope you're as excited about a machine like this as I am. I really think this is a game changer for small shops, and I can't wait to start using it more. So thanks so much for watching. Again, check out Wazer and see some links down below for more information about this, and I hope to see you on the next video. Thanks.